His tragic journey to that bloody morning was evident 9 years prior to April 7, 1906, when Walter Amphiloque Berrios shot and killed an unarmed sheriff outside the Jewel House in Manhattan, Nevada. On Monday afternoon, Constable Ferris got into a heated argument with the Berrios family at 1020 North Street when he tried to seize some of the furnishings that Ingram and Bird had affixed to the property. Despite the constable appointing Aycock as keeper of the property, Berrios and his spouse refused to give up the furnishings until 4 o'clock. Ferris waited for that moment, and Berrios left in the interim. Nothing was done until 5 o'clock, when Ferris once more insisted that Mrs. Berrios admit him, but she refused. Then he unlocked the door, crept into the home, and burst through a window. The property was taken away by a truckman who was nearby. When Berrios finally came back, he was furious. He saw that Ferris was carrying a weapon that was his, and he informed the officer that he would have paid a heavy price for his raid had he been there when he broke into the house. Throughout his life, Berrios, a professional gambler, would have numerous run-ins with the law, including the Sacramento incident. However, he was a kind man who had never been in trouble before, according to one of the claims made during his murder trial in the summer of 1906. He was acquitted of the shooting death of Tom Logan, a well-liked 3-term sheriff with a wife and 8 children, thanks to that uncontested allegation and numerous other tactical advantages his defense team created. Tom Logan, a native Nevadan, visited the prosperous new mining community of Manhattan, located roughly 40 miles northeast of Tonopah, on April 7th, just before his 45th birthday. In addition to his professional duties, he wanted to spend time with May Biggs, the owner of the Jewel, a house of ill fame. Biggs found Walter Berrios lounging on a lounge in the parlor just before dawn as she was removing the final dawdlers from the property. Later, Biggs would provide testimony during the coroner's hearing. I remarked something along the lines of, "He shouldn't ruin the fun they had by keeping me up any longer." He then stood up and turned around when I started to leave the room. There was his hat on the table. I assumed he would definitely come out. He told me not to say anything. Then I fell to one knee and cried out as he seized my wrists. I feared that he might strike me. "Oh, what's all this?" said Logan, who was just wearing a nightshirt, as he entered the parlor where Biggs and Berrios were fighting. Berrios and Logan trailed Biggs as he led the way down the corridor to the front door. Berrios' rage flared once he was out in the street and he reached under his coat. According to reports, Berrios shot despite Logan's instruction not to pull the revolver, breaking the glass in the open door. Berrios fired 5 shots at the unarmed sheriff after Logan charged him. In its evening edition, the Manhattan News provided a summary of the witness statements. When the inhabitants in that area awoke, they saw 2 men, both drenched in human blood, engaged in a struggle. When the inhabitants in that area awoke, they saw 2 men, both drenched in human blood, engaged in a struggle. According to an eyewitness, the fatally injured sheriff averted a double tragedy in a way that demonstrated the character of the guy who spanned the vast gap. Baring returned with Logan's gun after obtaining it, raised it at the accused, and was about to squeeze the trigger when the sheriff waved him away and instructed him not to shoot. According to Deputy Scott Hickey's testimony, he arrived at the gunshot scene as Logan and the man who was being held on suspicion of murder were on the ground. He claimed that Berrios was being held down on the ground by Logan, who was holding his hands, in which the latter was brandishing a handgun. Hickey claimed to have arrested Berrios after stealing his rifle. While the bereaved Logan family struggled to deal with their loss, Berrios, who was notorious among California law enforcement for his hot-headed schemes, cooled his heels in the recently opened jail in Tonopah, Nye County. The deluge of information regarding the murder took up the full front page of the Sun's evening edition on April 7, 1906. A courageous man has been humbled while carrying out his duty. Everyone in Nye County is in mourning for the loss of a person who was adored by everyone for his admirable qualities, chief among them being his courage. For the position he held, Thomas W. Logan was a naturally constituted individual. There was no braggadocio in him. He never threatened or spoke of his courage. He simply carried out his responsibilities as they occurred to him, doing so diligently and naturally, instead of arming himself with guns for a street parade and doing what some sheriffs do to get attention. Tom Logan was one of the quietest guys in the entire camp, and always performed his duties effectively and quietly when the most dangerous criminals were doing their crimes. He never gave it much attention as he looked down the barrel of a loaded gun without a quiver. Sheriff Logan was an excellent citizen, an exemplary sheriff who made a positive impact on his community. The man who barely avoided being lynched in public in the days after the murder was put on trial 3 months later. Berrio has a pair of defense lawyers. Patrick McCarran, a youthful, energetic lawyer from Reno, was co-counsel to Stephen Flynn, an experienced litigator from Michigan. Together, they would present a bold self-defense argument. According to one media story, McCarran characterized Biggs as an enchantress who had woven herself into the life of a guy predisposed to do right, making him a slave to her every want and wish in an effort to harm Logan's reputation and discredit the red light district witnesses. An impactful letter Logan had sent to his 3 daughters at business college in Oakland, California, a month prior, ran counter to his opinion. "My dear daughters, I haven't forgotten you, but you probably believe your father has. After witnesses, I've been gone from home for a while. It keeps me going day and night because this county is becoming so vibrant. Although they are unaware of it, I am attempting to get the rest of the family to visit by the middle of next month. I anticipate receiving $500 by April 10th, and if it does, I will give it to your mother so she may go spend it and have an opportunity to see anything. I don't think this will work out, but occasionally things like this do, so don't talk to her about it. We'll be fine. Your father has some opportunities to earn money before the summer ends that he has never had before. I am your loving papa, and I have enclosed $50 and will send more soon for all of you." The jury returned a not guilty decision on the morning of July 13, 1906, following 17 hours of deliberation. As Walter Berrio left the courtroom free, the Logan family was doomed to live with the ominous cloud of humiliation that had gathered over them for decades. Although Berrio's principal counsel was Stephen Flynn, Patrick McCarran's reputation took off, and he went on to become one of Nevada's most well-known and divisive U.S. senators. He attributes his ascent to political prominence to the Berrio acquittal, sometimes known as the McCarran miracle, in his own unpublished history. He doesn't mention Flynn, who committed suicide by hanging himself in a rooming house closet in San Jose, California, 3 years after the Berrio trial. Some eerie insight was provided by an excerpt from a letter he wrote to his wife and daughters. "One could characterize my mental state as one of total surrender to what I currently perceive to be my fate, an unavoidable doom. If I were standing on the scaffold with the black hood pulled over my head, I would be even more convinced of this fact, and I feel that I am far more resigned than I would be if I were in the latter position. I am also moved to leave with a sense of sympathy, if not outright love, for every person." After being found not guilty, Walter Berrio departed the country with his wife and daughter on a vessel bound for Panama. In subsequent years, he reportedly worked as a bodyguard for the notorious Nevada political boss George Wingfield, managed a casino in Mexico for Jack Dempsey, and made and lost a number of fortunes in the gaming sector. Berrio passed away alone and destitute in San Diego on July 4, 1953, at the age of 84. The question of whether the irascible gambler was really hired to murder Logan is still up for debate, but it's likely to stay a mystery forever.